Welcome to Today and Tomorrow, the podcast where we explore ideas, technologies, and people shaping the future, and that one question at a time. In each episode, we speak to those at the crossroads of innovation, culture, and change, people whose work today is already touching the world of tomorrow. And today, our guest is a bit different. He's worked in theater, in film, built companies from scratch, embraced technology before it was trendy, and now plays a key role in one of Europe's boldest innovation efforts. But before we move to our guest today, Dieter, it's very nice to have you by my side again. Hey.
Yeah, and it's always a pleasure. Especially, I bump into Wesley once a year at least, and when I in Malta at the summit, and well, yeah, I think we have become friends by now, and um so it's a great pleasure having you here. And especially because you are really a mover and shaker of the innovation industry, and from very many different sides. So great pleasure to have you here, Wesley.
So much, Dieter, and you're no stranger to moving and shaking the industry as well when it comes down to it, Dieter. So you should give yourself much more credit than that.
Wesley, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers?
Sure. My name is Wesley Ellul. I'm a entrepreneur is the best word for it. I own a number of different companies. I've been building businesses since about 2005. Originally from the world of arts and culture, where I started as an actor, later and DJ, and then sort of moved into the world of tech, and then found a way to sort of combine the worlds of tech and entertainment together. About 2 years ago, I was appointed by the Maltese government as a special envoy for startup funding and innovation. And that was only because I sort of went deep into the world of blockchain and Web3, and I started building a lot of network there, understanding that this like base layer of blockchain is going to be changing the way we do business and the way we trade goods and services as the future goes on, and built an amazing network of some amazing people out there. So because of that, now I get to sort of represent Malta in an official capacity for stuff that has to do with startups and innovation.
Mhm. Wesley, are you outside? Because sometimes it sounds very windy.
Yes, I am. I'm outside my courtyard here in Malta. It's a beautiful sunny day. I'm in between because I have to run to the EU Startup Festival this morning, and
Ah,
my children are at home. They're on Easter holidays, so I'm
okay.
I'm just trying to avoid the noise that's inside. Trust me, the wind is so much more calming.
Okay. Thank you for your introduction. You said you're Malta's special envoy for innovation and startup finance. So, in your view, what does an ideal startup ecosystem look like, and what might Europe learn from places like Silicon Valley?
Okay, so the one thing that Europe really did, or Europe can learn from Silicon Valley, is sort of centering the money and the innovation together in um, a very close space. I mean, if you do take a look at Silicon Valley, one thing that you'll notice, and every time you go down there, everybody's stuck working, right? So like you head down to Palo Alto, and you're out on a Monday or Tuesday night, there's nothing open. Like there's like not a I think there's like one bar open till like 10 o'clock, but that's because everybody's there to work and get their stuff done. That's centered around a university where there's again Stanford University down there. And what happens is the money, the talent, and the workers are all in one place. And this is sort of something that we do need to sort of take a look at, because I think the biggest problem in Europe is we segregate the money from the ideas. In Europe, we have old traditional systems whereby we sort of have banks in the way, and we have financial institutions in the way between the actual money and the innovation. In the US, they bring them together. There's places for the innovation to see the initial angel checks and to get to that step beyond. Here in Europe, usually the techies don't really mix too well with the people who can write those checks, and it's only because we're focused on innovation and they're focused on like making money. When we bring these two worlds together, that's when the magic happens, and it happens. It happens beautifully. But because they live in proximity, because they're part of the same community in the same area, well, then those checks can happen, and they know what's going around them. Trust me, the first person to write a check over in that area would be very much like the first person to write a check here in Malta. They would be taking a massive risk. They didn't realize what they're getting into. That guy who cut a check for, say, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, he didn't know what he was going to be doing with that money, and what it would turn out to. But then it became a culture because people saw one do well, two do well, three do well, and then all of a sudden people say, oh wait, this is how you make money. You cut these $20,000-$30,000 checks at early stages on ideas, and I might completely lose my money, but you know what, I might change the world as well. And it's more of a mentality shift which needs to happen. And again, it's going to take a lot of risk takers for us to get there, but I think we will.
Well, and I think when you describe this ecosystem, that's really close to the potential of Malta, because Malta, you have this very small place. When you're there, it takes a lot of effort to get off again, and you already have a huge amount of creativity on this island, and a lot of capacity with the university, and your brother being the head of the DLT Center. So the crypto brothers or the blockchain brothers are really shaping the Malta industry, you may say. Um, so uh, and I think and the big advantage of Malta too is that it is a relatively small community, so decisions can be taken a lot faster, even in a bureaucratic system as Europe is, than in larger countries. And I think up to this point, you really took this opportunity very well. Um, but of course, there's a lot more that can be done and should be done.
I agree, and I agree on your concept of the idea of the size of Malta. Malta has that one thing going for it because it is small. You do start mixing in the communities, so the builders and the people who are building tech are in the same circles without having to force themselves into these circles where the money lies. It's a small community. There's 600. I mean, I think officially 650,000 people at the moment. What's great is we have a brand new head of our Malta Enterprise, which is our sort of our entity, which is sort of focusing on the startup initiatives. Brand new head who has great new ideas, and he actually wants to push this even further. He does want more startups to be coming to Malta. He wants more funds to be coming to Malta, and now there's more concerted effort. We should have a startup framework, which is currently in consultation, coming out within the next 6 to 12 months, which will help both investors and startups understand what benefits there are to being on this little island. In my case, I mean, I just saw it as one advantage point. Beyond living here, I found Malta being a great test bed for technology. To reach 650,000 people is not very difficult on a little island. From a cost point of view, to get a test audience doesn't cost you a ridiculous amount of money. And what we have here in Malta, which is, I would say, slightly different to a lot of places, is we have a very westernized culture. In the sense, you could take a person out of Malta, throw him into New York or LA or anywhere in the US, and their habits would be extremely similar to those people when it comes down to how they consume tech, how they use tech. So if you were coming up with the next Tinder, so to speak, Malta would be a great trial to see how people react to it, what if it has a good take up, what the feedback is, because then from here you can roll it out quietly on this little island and then fix what needs to be fixed, and then go to the bigger markets, go to London and New York, Paris, wherever you want to go. But at least you could fail quietly here, and then rejig it as soon as you're ready to go.
I would love to dig a little bit deeper. You were talking about the culture, but what currently stands out the most about Malta's innovation scene, and where would you say is still room for growth?
Again, we are limited in size. Our innovation scene, we've done a lot towards the sort of gambling industry because of Malta's initial moves towards regulating the gambling industry. Blockchain was a little bit stunted. And the only reason why I say this is because the initial regulation which we put forward wasn't startup friendly. And there was a reason for it. It was we couldn't have a bunch of cowboys moving into the island saying, "Okay, I'm going to be launching this token or that token," or and then just disappearing with a whole bunch of money. Malta couldn't afford the reputational risk. So they did make the initial sort of movement into blockchain for smaller companies and smaller entities that had ideas a little bit more tough. But now that we have MICA come around, MICA now levels the playing field across Europe when it comes down to sort of like basic token issuance of a utility token. So that also means now you can play in Malta in a much easier way. So you can either go on the the institutional level, which is completely based off the Malta regulation, the various different MICA licenses for VASPs and CASPs. Um, so that's like, I mean, the exact same. In fact, they built that entire regulation. When it comes down to it, token issuance now in MiCA, it's a lot easier. So just with essentially with a white paper and notifying the local authority, you can start issuing your utility token within an ecosystem and start playing within this framework because you're doing what is now legal. I think we're going to see a lot of innovation coming out here, and I do think, like, from a mentality standpoint, this is just not us, but this is worldwide. We're going to see more innovation happening just post this next sort of push in the bull run because everybody's been holding back, waiting to see when the funds are going to be issued. But that area, there has been some stuff. They're doing a lot. There's a number of different small AI projects which are working on over here, and then a lot in sort of the biotech and health sector, where we've been building very strong life sciences innovation here in Malta. And again, our university is very well known for its research that is done. We've had a lot of doctors who have sort of cured wonderful things. And again, I don't know their whole history, but when you go through like the list of like historic operations, Malta usually features like in 1 in 20, 30 operations that you find like a doctor's done I don't know, the first open heart surgery or something like that. But yeah, so we're daring. And the thing is, the tech scene and the tech players here have to be daring because we don't have any resources here in Malta. We can't fall back on our oil or on our trees because we have neither of those, right? It's sun and sea when it comes down to it is the only thing that we have, and that's not even an export. That's, you literally have to import the people in. So to export, we export ideas, we export our creativity, and again, when you have nothing to work with, you have to get really creative very fast. And I think that's sort of been instilled in our culture in creation. Um, and yeah, again, go around the world. If there's companies that you'll know that have been founded by Maltese people, have you ever heard of Hotjar, the web tracking company? That's a Malta founded company. You go further afoot into the U.S. There's smartasset.com, which I think just this year is going to be IPOing for over $1 billion. Again, another Malta-founded company, and there's more and more of these people that people just see these little opportunities and aren't able to grow with them. Hopefully, the next one will be Engagement, my latest company, where we help people engage and create community on their own website. But it's all about just finding new ways of doing things within the constraints of having a lack of resources.
You said something very interesting. You said it's installed into the culture. How important is it to see innovation not just as a technical concept, but as a cultural process, in your opinion?
Well, if you put it like this, when you're again in a small community, people get bored very quickly. And this is why innovation is very important, because how many times are you going to see the same faces? How many times are you going to do the same thing? I guess it's just us keeping ourselves busy more than
Mhm.
anything. It's just like, is there a better way to do this? Is there a faster way? How do I stand out? In again, this coming to this island, you'll understand it very quickly. The first innovator has always the toughest job, and this is in any industry, right? So you come to Malta, and I don't know, you want to open a Pakistani food shop, and we don't have any. If that is taken well by people, within a
Mhm.
couple of months, there'll be another five on the same street next to them. because people will just sort of rinse and repeat. And then it will go out of trend. And this is what happens in small communities. They tend to do something, fall in love with something, everybody gets on that bandwagon, and then they move on to something else. When it comes down to tech, though, because we see these as much longer plays, we invent to stand out locally, and then we see if it applies internationally. And that's sort of like the methodology we use.
Well, yes, you're talking about limited resources on a limited location. There's this nice example of Eman Pool is another entrepreneur in the gaming, in the iGaming sector. He invented, or he founded, this huge congress. It was kept growing, and then it came to its limits last year when it was just becoming too big, and almost the entire traffic collapsed on the island, and everything, because too many people came there in a month that traditionally is a dead month, November. So he moved his venture with a big thing to Italy, to Rome. I think the next Sigma event will be Sigma Europe event. But you said you have already something in place to fill that gap. Can you talk about that?
So Eman, a great friend of mine, I used to consult with Sigma for a number of years, and he built one of the most amazing gaming conferences in the world. Again, today he holds conferences not just in Malta, but Rome, as you said. He holds them in Latin America, and I think it's in Sao Paulo. Very shortly, he's going to be in the Philippines, in Dubai, South Africa. So he's sort of built this conference brand, which is a global brand, and he had to move to Rome because he needed larger space. Being
in the holy year, I mean, that's when the Rome is packed. So
that's it. It's especially right now. I mean, he's. I mean, you literally you go for the gambling, but you'll get a new pope at the same time. So buy two get one free. But no, the way that things have moved, it saw a little bit of a gap in Malta, because he did build such a strong conference, which brought a lot of business people in Malta in what is historically known as a weak month. With that, I work under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Tourism, and again, I could hear the sort of the issue that was at hand, and I said, okay, what if we step up and this is this private entity outside of the government, and see if we can fill this space in a way that will benefit. We just create a win-win-win scenario for everybody. So along with my partner, Brian McMahon from Expert Dojo, and Simon Bogdanowicz, we decided, let's put together a conference, but not gambling, because again, I'm not here to step on anyone's toes or take anyone's area. I was asking a question: is there something that we can do that can be impactful, that can both help from a business side, but also help from a humanity side? Because holding these conferences just for financial gain of all parties is great, but if we can actually start asking the harder questions and start shaping the future, that I find even more helpful. So we decided on a conference which we are calling Convergence, which is the intersection of Web3, AI, the new economy, and humanity. And we've been seeing the reports that have been coming out through various different entities such as PricewaterhouseCoopers and the World Economic Forum, which have been stating that by 2030, we're going to see over 1 billion people lose jobs to AI. That's about 1/5 of the world's population gone out without jobs. And the other thing is, a lot of people, when they think, oh, they're going to be losing jobs, it's going to be the taxi drivers to the Waymo cars around the US. And that will be some of it, but it'll also be lawyers, it'll also be accountants, it'll also be therapists. It'll be a lot of the knowledge industries, these industries which for so many years we've regarded as this sort of the top professions. Like if you want your kid to be something as they grow up, they need to be a lawyer, they need to be a doctor.
And a safe haven from AI, because I remember we were talking about the creative industries will be safe because computers are not creative. We were so wrong.
Well, yes and no. So this is the interesting thing. So the creative industries are still sort of safe, and I'll explain why. A graphic designer is not safe in that if they're just sort of creating rinse and repeat graphics, if they're not if they're not graphic artists, if they are not people who create new visual concepts but are just sort of rinse and repeating other people's work, they're not safe. um, a, uh, a video editor who is just doing the bog standard, uh, that the bare minimum that they have to do, they're not safe because AI will do it just as good of that as them. It will be the people who use proper and true creativity that are the ones that are safe, or the ones who use their creativity along with AI that will be safe when it comes down to it. In fact, if you do take a look at the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report, which came out in January, they had a list of like the most sought after jobs, which will be happening around the 2030 area. The top four were very like extremely technical jobs. I think there was like a quantum AI engineer, and there was like a AI engineers and all sorts of different things like that. The top four, but number five was creative thinkers. Creative thinkers were literally pitched as the fifth most sought after job. It went on to content creators a little bit lower down, and I think in the eighth position, or seventh or eighth position, was talent management. And what the thought is that with these billion people losing their jobs, and because of the type of people they are, they're not exactly people who don't know people. Every lawyer knows a lot of people. Every accountant knows a lot of people. Um, this means that governments cannot stand by and let them like be removed from society. What governments will most likely do is pander to them and take care of them. So some form of UBI will come to play. Is the at least the thought pattern which a lot of people are speaking about. And again, that was projected by the World Economic Forum back in 2020. So then, what does this new economy look like if we have a billion people now not working, with money in their pockets and all the time in the world? Some of them will want to fill their time and have purpose with their time. Some of them will just want to enjoy it. But what will this industry look like? And we want to bring the players in Web3, in Web2, in AI together onto a table to start discussing what this future will be like, so that we can start shaping that future rather than the government's doing so. And that's the whole purpose of the conference. We already have a number of amazing speakers, which we will be announcing very, very shortly. But a number of famous, what I can say is a number of famous people, owners of football clubs to former world tennis champions and television celebrities coming from that world. Because, and again, our belief is entertainment is going to be a big part of that new economy. But then also heads of major brands from the world of fashion, from the worlds of consumer electronics, and so on. So that'll be happening November 11th to 14th in Malta at the Intercontinental Arena. And yeah, we're creating an action-packed lineup, which includes the first day, which is all based for the investors, because we do believe that the investors around the world need to be part of this conversation and need to be on day one of this conversation. In fact, we have a private event for 150 investors.
You talked a lot about technology, and on a more personal note, which emerging technology excites you the most right now? Not as a diplomat, not as a founder, but simply as Wesley. What technology is the most fascinating one for you?
Well, for me, the thing is that technologies are not siloed. Um, it's way back when we started talking about blockchain, and then the rumors of AI started coming out. I I initially saw them like we're speaking of these like we speak about a when we used to build a computer back in the day, right? A computer CPU without the RAM and without the motherboard and the hard disk and the IO, the like keyboard, doesn't work. These technologies work well together. So AI is going to be so powerful. I mean, like ridiculously powerful. The second that AI is like being my personal full-time personal assistant, my life is going to be so much easier and so much cheaper rather than having the full-time personal assistant I have right now. Again, I'll probably I'm not saying she's going to lose her job, but it'll get so much more done. it will help me because that personal assistant can be with me all the time. But then beyond that, AR, I think is going to be super powerful. I'm looking forward. See, I already wear the Meta glasses, the first version. I'm looking forward to the heads-up displays. That's going to again help me be a little bit more productive.
Mm.
Help me do things without constantly looking down at my phone. I think that's one of my um, again, I'm probably a little bit ADHD, but it's one of my curses that I'm always looking at my phone. In fact, 25 minutes without picking up my phone inside of me is giving me the jitters of like how many messages have I missed. But I think AR is going to be a big part of that. Uh, and then again, quantum computing then is just the very very big question of how and what does that change in the sense it opens up almost limitless possibilities. People talk about quantum being the sort of the bridge to the multiverse, to the bridge to unlimited possibilities. That is something that intrigues me, and I just think of it as part of this overall stack of digital assets meets AI, meets AR, meets quantum, where we have a new paradigm together with all these technologies, rather than them being siloed as like separate or by themselves.
Yeah, you were bringing up an interesting point, and that's this interlinking of creativity and technology. You already mentioned it before, but you coming from the very creative uh, industry, and how does it link with what you're doing now? You're still doing theater, of course, but and I think that's a very important part of your identity, but also of your career, that you can bring these different fields together.
Well, it's something I've always loved doing. So in my with my comedy company, for example, we do an annual show to about 10,000 people, and this show ever since I've sort of been in the technicals area, I've always tried to bring in technology into part of the performance, whether it's using AI as a sort of customer service agent, but where we create that AI in with the voice and the likeness of one of our characters, to like exploring things like NFTs and the NFT culture, to like just making comedy about how people act around when they hold Bitcoin, right? This is more my writers making fun of me than anything else, though, really. But this intersection of entertainment and culture and technology actually has led me to one of the biggest projects I'm working on today, with the founder of Nickelodeon and MTV. It's called Technotainment. It's literally trying to set the standard for streaming 2.0. Like as we're streaming today, all the streamers today, all they've done is they've taken what was old broadcasting technology and moved it to a different medium, right? So it went from radio broadcasting to cable broadcasting to satellite broadcasting. Now instead, it's data broadcasting over as a digital broadcast. But the thing is, when we came into the world of streaming, we actually had a two-way system which we could use. It wasn't just a receipt, but it's a place where we could actually send back data. And what we're looking at is creating this new sort of standard, very much like USB had created a standard on how the data can go back and forth through USB. We're looking at creating that standard for streaming, so that when it comes down to studios producing content, they have a standard by which they can create interactive content. What is it going to be? What is the feedbacks we can do back and forth? Can we have a movie that's non-linear, right? So rather than going from A to B to C to D, can you participate in ways that changes the outcome? Could we be using AGI? Could we be using AI and generative AI in the concept of changing the movie as it goes on? So these are all the questions we're asking. In fact, right now we're in the process of putting together the Technotainment Global uh, uh, Technotainment Global Investment Fund, which is basically focused on just finding these new technologies, creating an alignment, and creating what will be the new standard, so that everybody can play ball in this new way, and we can make entertainment more entertaining as well. Because we did see a big divergence in the world of film and television entertainment when the iPhone came about. and sort of stole people's attentions away from what was on the screen, because the community split from being those people in the same room as them to people being on a phone who weren't doing what they were doing, and diluted the entertainment. Whereas we saw the games industry bring the community and the game together, and they exploded.
So at the moment you're shaping the future. One final question. If you would tell, because you're doing it right now, you just described it. If you want to give one recommendation to our viewers and listeners out there, what would it be? How could they shape the future as well as you do it with your experience as a diplomat, as an entertainer, as an entrepreneur?
Okay, so this is advice I'm giving to everybody, including my kids at the moment. Is one, be fearless, be creative, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Um, Everything that we knew is changing. Change is upon us, and whether we like it or not, it's going to happen. Now, at this point, we have a choice to fight it or move along with it, and I think it's going to be just, again, just like in every sort of major change in society. There's going to be the ones who adapt earliest are probably going to be the ones who are the biggest winners. So find a way for these technologies to help you in your life. Use them as catalysts to change your business. If you're a law firm that is scared of using AI because of multiple different things, look at it as a tool for you to actually increase your business, not just locally but also internationally. Be able to open new offices, say in London, where you can compete against major London offices with the experience of staff, let's just say, based in Malta, but you only need one person there to do the work of 10. Um, see these as global growth patterns. This is what I would do. Take them as opportunities rather than as problems, and you'll come out a winner.
Thank you very much. Those were wonderful final words for this episode. Thank you for your time, Wesley.
Thank you so much, Alexander. Thank you, Dieter.
And always a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, we will continue this one point or the other.
Indeed, indeed.
If there's one thing I take away today is that the future is not built in silos, it's built by people together in the community and to ask the right questions. So thank you for listening to today and tomorrow today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, share it with someone curious, and stay tuned. Because, as we heard, the future is closer than we think. We just need to shape it. So, until next time, take care, stay curious. Thank you, Dieter. Thank you, Wesley. And see you next time.
And thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.